Welcome to the Node.js NAPI team meeting for December 11th, 2020. We'll go through our regular agenda, which is to look at the things we've tagged for milestone 11. Before we do that, does anybody have any announcements or other things they'd like to share?
Michael, I don't know if this is the correct time, but I noticed James Snell had a thread going under discussions that were impacting NAPI, and I just wanted the group here to be aware of that. I don't
Was
know if
that
you've
the
been
one related to like what was it, like special add-ons or
correct?
something?
Yeah,
Okay.
Maybe as we discuss, I'll bring up the link, and if we have time later, I can share the link.
Sure, yeah, no, that's a good, we could spend some time just talking a little bit about that.
Okay.
I will, while you do that, I will go on and we can start looking at some of
Okay.
the issues that were tagged. Let me share so that people can see. Where is the share screen? There we go. Okay. So the first one that was tagged is use Stalebot for Node add-on API. That's one that I added recently. I did a mini cleanup. We had like 100 older issues. And I wondered if maybe we should turn on Stalebot, which is being used in some of the other projects. And that basically, after a certain amount of time, says, hey, this looks stale. I'm going to close it unless somebody comments. So I wondered what people thought about turning that on for Node add-on API as well.
Works for me.
Yeah, I think, and then it gives the originator the option to reopen it, I imagine. Yeah.
All you need to do is comment.
Yeah.
Like basically, I'm pretty sure it gives you a warning that says, hey, this looks stale. It's going to be closed in 30 days. If somebody comments, it doesn't, become stale. There's also, I think, things where you can put like a never stale tag and stuff. So it kind of, if nothing else, is also a reminder to us, like, hey, this is something we should go back and take a look at, because I often drive based on like recent notifications.
Right.
And after a certain amount of time, I don't necessarily go back. So it would be like, hey, you've ignored this for a long time. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. If there's no, it sounds like everybody thinks that's a reasonable idea. So I'll try and figure out how to do that. I think it shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is why the source Node API and Node API types files were moved to the Node repository. This was actually opened in Node add-on API, but I moved it over here so we could put it on the agenda, and I'll move it back. I think, as everybody will remember, but for those who may be watching on the stream, we used to have those files in Node add-on API as a bridge for older versions that didn't support NAPI at all. They were a bit of a challenge to keep up to date and so forth. So anyway, as soon as all versions of Node supported NAPI, we removed them. But I think the use case that they have is that they want to build against those without having to have Node itself. And that kind of makes sense to me. Not as part of Node add-on API itself, though, but maybe somewhere else. So I don't know what people think about that. That would take us some amount of work to put a copy, like, I don't know, I was thinking like it might make sense to have one which matches each of the specific versions, like NAPI 7, NAPI 6, NAPI 5. We don't actually maintain anything that actually looks like that. We have one cumulative one where the define lets you choose which one you want. And maybe that still just makes sense. Like it would basically be a copy of whatever the latest is in master, maybe without the experimental section.
That's complicated, right? Because if you want a snapshot of what it was at time of publication, then okay, but whatever it was, it is already present in in the latest. I mean, they are cumulative, right? So the only benefit would be that let's say, for example, at the time NAPI 4 was published, right?
Yeah.
You know, things like NAPI freeze object didn't even exist, even in experimental. So if you turned on NAPI experimental with the latest version as is present on master, then you would get NAPI freeze object. But if you turned on NAPI experimental against the version 4 published, then you wouldn't. So things would be absent and would fail to compile.
That's
that
why
would
I'm
be the
thinking
difference.
it would be minus anything that's That's why I was kind of thinking you'd have to strip out experimental.
Well, you don't have to strip it out, right? But the definition of what is experimental was different when NAPI 4 was published than it is when NAPI 7 was published, right? They were all published with some experimental bits, right? But when NAPI 4 was published, certain experimental bits which are experimental today didn't even exist back then. Right.
That's where I'm
so
getting
the view
to.
is still different if you include a different version.
But that could change. So any week of the lifespan of 4, there could have been a different set of experimental, right? So like we would basically have to keep multiple versions. So that's where my thinking was, like, the experimental part is just too complicated.
Right.
So maybe this might make sense. If you exclude the experimental, then actually the story becomes pretty straightforward, because like once NAPI 4 is set, it should never change.
Exactly. And if you do exclude experimental, then it doesn't matter whether you include the version of the header as it was published in 4 or you include the version of the header from master. It doesn't matter which version of the header you include. Right? Because
so maybe
4 is always the same.
Right. So maybe if like if we had a copy of what was the current one in master minus experimental in a repo somewhere, that would be useful. Like, and maybe that it only really needs to ever get updated when we define a new NAPI version.
But okay, why would that be useful though? Because like if you don't have the experimental stuff, right, then that's just like including it from the source without turning on NAPI experimental. So you can get a view of that without us having to have a copy.
I think the answer is like at least from this person's request, is that they don't want to have to get Node to get the headers because they're not using it with Node.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right, like they're basically
they just want sort of the official NAPI headers.
Says the requirement is to use the NAPI part only and don't need all the Node project API headers. Because Nick pointed out you could just go get the headers and you get what you need, right?
Yeah.
And so he pointed us to node.js.org API. NAPI takes NAPI as part of the engine abstraction. Yeah, I mean, I think they would just wanted to import the one, like the headers. And then so they could use it in other engines and, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess you can link against, you can use the headers and then link a shared object. Yeah, and because the shared object doesn't have to have all the symbols resolved, right? So you could just link sort of in a vacuum, and it would just boom work with Node whenever you linked against Node. I mean, dynamically linked against Node.
Now, of course, you can already get that file from GitHub.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, that's not npm installed though, right? So.
Is that what they were saying? They wanted an npm install of it? Okay.
Well, it kind of makes sense, right? If you want to build an add-on, right, then you would use Node add-on API, right?
Right.
But and then you would have your own build system that would use it, right? Because like you probably wouldn't use JIP because that would require Node, right? You would probably have like CMake or something, and then that CMake doesn't require Node at all to be present.
Okay, what you need? One from okay, so I'm just writing, if you can see my screen, from npm to have contain the file. Let's see here, which is GitHub, so it's node. And the file is what? It is going to be under source, right? Is it? Headers. Node. Actually, it's now JS native API, right? Why can't I find that here? They're all in source, right? JS native API or native. Okay, sorry, I'm searching. So basically, we would need contain the following files. JS native API.h. Yes. And I think there's also a node. I think we need the node API types, right?
Yes, node API and node API types.
And is there, and there's node API.h,
node API.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So in those
files,
are those all self-contained in terms of what they include or not?
Well, node API needs JS native API.
Right, but those four, do they need anything? Like if you wanted to link against that, do you need anything else?
You shouldn't. No, they are intentionally separated.
Yeah, which is what I thought, which define the functions.
Also, I just had a thought. Like I don't think we need to edit them in any way. We don't need to strip out the experimental stuff because it doesn't matter what the experimental stuff is, right? At the time of publication, we could just document that. Yes, it's mentioned there, but I mean, it's up to the it's up to the person who ultimately ends up loading the add-on whether that stuff is available or not, right? And so people who want this, presumably, you know, they will define nappy version 4 or whatever when they use these headers, right?
Right. I think you're right that we don't necessarily need to strip it out, but I think we'd want to document that you shouldn't use experimental.
Yes, you should use experimental, yeah, because that can vary, yeah.
Experimental, and by default, the experimental things aren't there, right?
Yeah, that's right. You have to precede the inclusion of the header with number defined nappy experimental if you wish to use experimental stuff.
I'm wondering how would we define the release process of this package? Then the package may be needed to be released by the Node.js release team, right? Every time a new Node.js version is released.
I'm not sure.
No, not necessarily, right? Because
go ahead, yeah.
I was just gonna say no, because we only need to release a new version of Node add-on API when we have a new version of an API. So yes, okay, we are kind of forcing ourselves to make another release, but only with each version of an API, right? Because if any API doesn't change between Node major releases, then it doesn't matter. The header stays the same, right? Even if the implementation changes, these folks, they don't care about the implementation. They want to use it with a different implementation anyway. So they just need the shape, and the shape, if it doesn't change, we don't need to republish.
Yeah.
Yeah. This sounds good, but so will we having different tags for the nappy versions? Let's say we can have a nappy version 8 on npm package tag tagged with
Yeah.
nappy version 8.
Oh,
I think
okay.
like the latest would give you all of them, right? But we
Yeah.
would publish, so you probably want to take the latest, and then because you get the API based on which one you define, right?
Yeah. So the picture of the file you get depends on what nappy version you define exactly. So even if NAPI version 235 is available, if you number define nappy version 3, then you're still only going to be getting 3, and everything else will give you an error.
Yeah. And for those experimental NPI, will we release a new version of the package to include those experimental
No.
APIs on the master branch?
No, I'd advocate that we just you don't get any experimental with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
So the release process will be whenever we release a stable NPI version, we will publish a new version of the package.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, because that sounds like, that's once or twice a year, and it's basically copy over the current version of the files, do a publish. That seems like quite low overhead, right?
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Okay, so does this seem to capture is this what they need? Be able to install the headers from NPM, have the npm package contain the following files, which are just those ones, which define the function types available through an API. Experimental functions may be document files, but the define should not be used to expose them. There is one set of files, and the user specifies the NAPI version that they want to be exposed using the appropriate define. And then a new version is published after each time a new NAPI version is defined.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm going to comment that, and I'm going to move this back to the NAPI repo. So where do I move? Where is move? Move transfer issue, right? Where did node? Okay. Okay. I'm going to say at because then we could maybe make a package which would be something like node add-on API headers, right?
Yeah,
I
or
believe
well,
it's
node
not
API headers.
we should not include the node add-on API term, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
Just
yeah,
like
you're
node
right, because
API.
it's not. You're right. It's not. It has nothing to do with node add-on.
Yeah, right.
So maybe it would be possible package names, say like node API headers.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, and really it doesn't belong in node add-on API, but anyway, that's where it was open. So we'll. Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
Once again, we're getting stuck on the name. There is a package called Node API, which is why we couldn't use that name, right?
Okay.
So if we say Node API headers, people might get the wrong idea. Although the Node API package is being downloaded 32 times a week, so it may not be such a big problem.
What is Node API anyway?
It says Node API lazy require core modules. This is a trivial module that enables you access core node modules without the need to require them. It exports a single object with properties corresponding to the core module names. The properties perform are required the first time they are accessed.
Right. I don't know. I don't think if that's that little use, there'll be that much confusion necessarily, right?
Could we scope it like at node /
Right, yeah, because I think we may actually have a scope.
Does the at node.js the scope is limited to the possible future internal packages? I've seen discussions on the Node.core repo that the built-in module might use a potential at node.js scope.
Yeah, true. Let me just see, are there any modules there already that are scoped that way? Yeah, I don't. How do I search on a scope module? Would it be like at node.js or something else?
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Okay, we can look at that separately, but let's confirm that we know what they want, and then we can figure out a name for it. Okay, anything more on this one before we move on? Okay, so that's good. Review external examples. I haven't done anything on that, so I don't have an update. I haven't enabled debug testing. I don't know the Node SAS API port, if that's still underway or.
It's unfortunately, it seems like it's stalled.
Okay. Is that something we should still leave on the agenda or?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's worth it.
Okay, let's close that out then. Okay. Modules that were ported.
We're kind of out of date.
New?
October 2020 has passed. if we're going to make one for each year,
True,
or we maybe just extend the title or something.
Sure. Let me just. We usually just take a quick look at here. Seems like it's on an upward trend still, which is good. There was a bit of a blip. I don't know what happened, but I looked at other modules and they seem to have the same blip. So I don't know if it was in tracking or it was a quiet time or what, but seems to be back up on the upward trend. Was that?
Maybe it's weekend.
Yeah, or maybe US Thanksgiving or something like that.
It was right around that time. I just didn't know that it would have that. Like Express was down 10%. And so anyway.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I've seen this, Gabriel brought this up last week. I've seen a similar trajectory on other projects also. And Gabriel brought up the question of how much is that just due to wider adoption of Node itself?
Right, yeah, like so that this is, yeah, like how much is this going up versus, I mean, I think
just Node itself. Well, actually, one thing, if you go back to that page, oh yeah, okay, this one's
well, there
flat.
you go. That's pretty, yeah, okay.
Like there, I mean, NAND still goes up,
but not on the same trajectory.
Yeah, not in terms of percentage is the same. Right?
And also, I noticed that our dependents have increased. Like we're at 800 now, whereas we were in the 700s every time I've checked so far. So
okay,
so it's getting there.
NAND still gets used a lot more, and like there are a number of increases. Like it's still like they've gone up this year maybe by as many as Node and API, but in terms of a percentage, we're certainly in the right trajectory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, but it's impressive that these things just keep going up that much all the time. So, whoa, that was, I don't know what that package is, but no add-on. Yeah, so your dependencies, dependence is actually a good. So 800 is a pretty good. It's too bad that's not tracked over time as well, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So at least it looks like, I was a little worried there when we went down by like, I don't know.
Yeah, we broke that 3 million.
Yeah, and so it's like, woohoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed.
It's been a long effort.
Yep.
That's good. Okay, so you were saying we should change the title, right? If I can get back to there. Nope. So I don't know, do we want to create a new one, or do we want to, maybe it's time to close this one and create a new one?
Yeah, either way is fine by me.
Okay, let's share. Okay. I think the only other thing, so we've talked about all the other ones, I think, except for, are there any issues in, look at that, any ones that people want to bring up, issues in terms of pull issues or anything we should discuss?
The release is now poised to go out, right? Because we landed Kevin's PR and that other one that we were going to land.
Yep. Maybe I'll just see. That makes sense. I'll just ask Nick if he's still able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, because yeah, no, I had that thought that basically we've got a bunch of good stuff in there. We should make the release. Okay, so I see Legendacast, you've got a fix for this one.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss this maybe.
Okay.
The fix will be, since the issue is not caused by this condition is not happening in Node add-on API itself. It's on the Node internal implementation. Every time the REST condition happens in the in Node core that a thread function, it will when a thread function receives and send all the user functions, it will trigger a UV async, and the UV async will be call the callback of the thread function, right? The thread function then will be calling initiating a UV idle UV idle handle, and maybe it will be better to show the link posting the discussion.
Do you want to share and do you want me to share something?
Maybe I just post link. It's the
sure.
source of the function implementations.
Okay, here, I'll stop the share. You're going to paste it in the chat there. Okay. Oh. Is it something we should fix in core versus Node add-on API?
I don't believe so, but it's just a simple fix on the Node add-on API itself.
Okay. So were you going to post a link, or are you still looking for the link maybe?
I'm posting the link.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I posted.
Okay, thanks.
So in the implementation per the static function itself, it seems okay to, in this condition, the static function is deferring the code to the idle phase, but that caused a gap between the async t callback and the actual user function callbacks. There is a gap between the async callback and the idle callback, right? And between those two callbacks, there are chances that the async UV async is still being able to be triggered again, and so the async progress worker can be send a non-coalesced call to the actual user function. So the fix will be simple to determine that if the data is not point, and we'll just suppress the callback of the async on progress of the async progress work.
So how does it? I don't know if Gabriel, you followed that. I didn't quite follow how we can get it triggered before it's ready. I guess is what it sounds like, right?
This condition happens in the before the actual node add-on API code executed. So there is no chance that the node add-on API to prevent the risk condition. But to the static function, the send each callback is they are expected, and it's not unexpected behavior. So the condition might be tricky to async progress work since they are expecting coalesced.
Hey,
they are
can you all hear me?
the on progress.
Yeah, sorry, we can hear you now.
The next progress item thread eventually, unless there should never be a situation where let's say function implementation may drop one of the progress calls.
Sorry, we heard you for a minute there, Gabriel, but now we don't.
Oh, what the heck?
Okay, now we can hear you.
Yeah.
We heard the what the heck quite nicely.
Hello, can you hear me?
I just like to confirm that why is the idle callback being that's to say why we added the UV idle to deferring the callback into the user function of the thread function.
Oh, why did I do that? I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know, honestly. I don't remember anymore what the state was back then. But I don't know. Did you get my question? Because I got disconnected as I was speaking.
No, we didn't get your question.
Okay, so my question was, if the async progress worker calls the main thread, right, and every time it calls the main thread, it passes a parameter to that call, then even though some of those calls may be dropped because they get coagulated into the idle callback, all of them should have a parameter, right? So I don't understand where the parameter is being dropped.
The async progress worker has only one slot for the parameters, so there is only one chance that the user function can get the coalesced data, and when the either before the maybe we can back to the explanation of the we can back to the issue. I have posted a graph of the event.
Sure. Okay, let me find that.
I have a link in the PR. We can back to the issue in the PR.
Right, this one.
Yeah.
And then in here you have a fixes 821 or something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, 821.
Okay. Right, there we go. This.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So when first there is a send progress in the async progress worker, and the UV async T has triggered the async callback, and we are awaiting the idle callback. And there is another call of the send progress. So there is another chance that UV async T is able to trigger, but when the send progress B happens, we have replaced the slot with the latest data, and after the send progress B, we are actually calling into the module. So in this first calling into the module, we have no idea that this is the data has been replaced by the second call of send progress. So we are calling the user callback with the data B and clear everything to clear everything in the slot. And there is another callback of the second callback of the UV async T and the idle callback and calling to the node add-on API. So the async progress worker reads nothing since we have already sent the data B.
So basically, while the call to read something has already been started, we overwrite what it's going to read, and it reads the later value. But then there's already another thing triggering it to say, hey, there was some more progress, and when that second one goes, it finds there's nothing.
Yeah, this
yes.
This is a bit of a problem because the whole point of thread safe function was that it does not drop, it doesn't coagulate, right? Because UV async T coagulates, right? And the point of thread safe function was that there be a queue, right? So if it drops things, then that's very bad for thread safe function, right?
Progress, but progress, is it like when you update the progress, does it matter if you miss some progress?
No, it doesn't matter. But since it's implemented with thread safe function, right? The whole point of thread safe function was that it provides more value than just UV async T, in that it creates a queue, right? And so everything that comes in is guaranteed to make it across eventually, right? So
Right,
that's
but
why
it
it's a function
kind of
call.
does make it across. I think, and just like in the progress case, maybe we've decided we don't care.
Yeah.
Like there's new progress. So like, why do you care? Like if it's basically said you got something that says, hey, I'm 10% complete, I'm 20% complete. Why do you want the, hey, I'm 10% complete when you got the thing that says I'm 20% complete?
Okay. All right. Yes. No. Definitely. I understand that the semantics of the async progress worker are sort of best effort, and you get as many progress reports as will fit. But what I'm concerned about is whether the fact that one of the progress reports gets dropped, is that because of the implementation of thread safe function? Because if it is, then we have found a scenario where a thread safe function drops one of the calls, and that it should never drop a call, right?
I'm not sure that it's dropped it though.
No, the call is not dropped, but it's the async progress workers semantics, since they are dropping the data frames that are not they are only send the latest data to the user function.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So if the problem is confined to async progress worker, then that puts my mind at ease, because that means the fix will also be here, and thread safe function need not be changed, because that's always a big hassle, because we need to like maintain compatibility and stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. I understand. Okay. All right. Well, if that's the case, then we just need to review this PR that you wrote, correct?
Right. So it's not, I guess, Legendikas, you're saying it's nothing in the semantics in the C API, because progress worker is, the semantics are all defined in node add-on API, right?
Yeah. Right.
Right. So we could try and avoid triggering the
I'd just
second
like to
callback.
confirm the idle callback while we are deferring the actual calling to the module in the that function. So Gabriel that he is not recalling the reason.
So I just want to see what method is this? This is right, I guess. So this data, if somebody reads it by this point, it's already.
Yeah, it's already been sent. So we can safely suppress the empty code.
I wonder if it should be inside of this thing, though.
Gabriel, it's nothing. It's kind of similar, I believe.
But if it's not in here, data could be updated.
Yeah, but if the data is being updated, there can be another call of the async.
Right, okay, we've already got the data and then it, yeah, okay. No, that's, yeah, fair enough. Okay, that makes sense to me now, I think, so.
Yeah, there is a test for the case. So the test will always in my local machine that will fail in previous implementation. So I have to ensure that the test actually succeed with the change.
Right. So you're saying this always on your machine will fail with the test, or this test always passes regardless?
The test will fail before the change, and
right.
It succeeded with every time with the
Perfect.
with the
okay. Okay, well that sounds good. Anything more questions, discussion you want to have on that one?
I have another one that
okay.
I think that we have Travis CI not running for a long time. Several PR have not been running with Travis, so I said in the latest the top one, we have a GitHub Actions for those test runnings. Maybe we can migrate from Travis to GitHub Actions.
That definitely makes sense to me. I know there's been some changes on the Travis side that are making it harder for people to use it, so. Any concerns from anybody else on that one?
Not from
Sounds
here.
good to me.
And so does that did you remove the Travis file, or is it
I can remove the Travis later. The Travis file later.
Yeah, once we've got things working. Okay. Okay, so we'll try and, I did wonder, should we actually try and land this one before the release? Since that fits.
That's actually a good point. Yeah, maybe we should. Yeah, should add that to the release.
Yeah. So let me just, I think I'll try and look at this afternoon, and so maybe if we can get it approved and landed, that would be, we'll still be in the, hey, we can do the release soon, but. I don't know, Gabriel, if you'd have time to take a look, but if you could look at it and thumbs up, I could try to plan to land it this afternoon.
Okay.
Test
Okay, we'll
and stuff. Okay, thanks. Sorry, yeah, okay. And the GitHub Actions one we'll move over. Any other ones people want to call out? I think I don't see any other new ones there in terms of issues.
There's one in core about a possible new API. This would be Semver Minor.
Okay.
From Gus, I think.
Which new API is it? Let's.
Yeah, if you look for an API issues.
Is this the one?
No. This is old. Yeah, label and okay, here we. Yeah, this should return to caller. That's yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have this sort of functionality in V8 where you can. We have this watchdog in core where you can like tear down the execution if it's taking too long, and so this is something you can check for, much as you can check whether there's an exception pending.
Okay.
You can also.
So it's related to cancellation.
The execution is being torn down, and so the summary seems to be that it's okay. It's like an engine thing. Sorry, say again.
Like I know that there's some work related to cancellation, so I'm wondering if the abort controller, if it's related to that.
I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Sorry, I know there's some work related to abort controller. I was wondering if it's related. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but basically it seems okay for us, because in terms of other engines, if they don't have this, then this function can always just return false if they don't have the concept of interrupting execution.
Right.
So it seems pretty safe.
Okay, and it is under the experimental section.
Yeah. Oh, and I asked him to move it to JS native API, because this does not rely on node.js internals at all. It just relies on the engine itself.
Right.
And so JS native should be okay for it. It's not as strong a case as if it were specified like an ECMA script. But there are things in JS native API that are not part of ECMA script, like externals and references and that kind of thing. That those are engine things that most engines have. So I think this is okay, because any engine can have this and just always return false if they don't support, setting a flag for interrupted execution.
Okay, and the code that we're using is strictly in JavaScript land, like V8 land versus Node land.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't use any node internals. It's just one line, basically. It just checks on the isolate if execution is being terminated. That's it.
Right.
It's just a flag returned by the isolate.
Okay, and that would be related probably to the abort control. Okay, that makes sense to me, that it would be in the JavaScript land versus Node land, something that's being borrowed from general JavaScript. So now this I guess could go back to previous versions of Node, because it would just, but in the backport it would just be a no op.
Yes, it would return false if the isolate doesn't have this functionality. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good, because one concern would have been like, is it going to prevent us from backporting an API 8 or something, right? But sounds like no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's right. We can just stub it out on old versions because of its semantics.
Yeah, I'll have to read through the documentation to see if there's a little bit more. I see.
I mean, it's a larger PR than just an API, and so there's some you know, there's some discussion going on as to whether this should just be part of VM, because VM already has this kind of
Right.
functionality, right? But that's out of our scope.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for bringing that one up, because that's worth taking a look at for sure. Any other ones that we should? Let's see. Is there anything else tagged there? Actually, here, I'll bring that back. I just wanted to make a copy of that. Okay, here, I'll do this. Maybe I want that one here. And if I pull this one back in, there we go. Okay, so now if I go back, so this one, okay, so this is probably one we should take a look at. It's a new, unless it's related to that. I think we're running out of time, so we probably don't have enough time, but that's one we should look at too. This one, I guess you created a little while back, so that's not new. So, okay. Okay, we have 3 minutes left. Anything of priority that we think we need to look at before we close out? If not, thanks for everybody's time and a productive meeting as always. And I guess the question is anybody going to be around 2 weeks from now? If not, we might just choose to cancel and meet back in January.
What is next week?
So I meant 2 weeks from now or next week. Yeah, actually, no, that's true. We're every week. So maybe let's quickly look. I'm good for the next week.
Okay.
It's I don't know how other, I guess maybe I just was asking how are other people. The week after that is the 25th, so I definitely won't be available for that.
Right.
Right, nor I.
And the week after that is New Year's Day.
Yeah, so we'll skip those. So maybe we should do next week, but then skip the next two after that.
Yeah, until the 8th. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Sense.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll see everybody next week, and then hopefully everybody has a good holidays if we don't see them. That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
See you guys then.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Talk to you later.